Hi guys, welcome back to Journey Teachers. Today we have a very special guest with us, Trisha, who is also a Kshais alumni and she has been my senior. She's a very cool, very fun person to talk to, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today, including street smartness, which is the main theme for this podcast, and a lot of other related things from her interesting stories. So I can't wait to get the podcast started. Welcome, Trisha, to Journey Teachers.
Hi everybody. Hi Kriti. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I had to just appear a little cool, hence the glasses. How are you doing? Are you doing okay? Thank you for being such a warm host. So sweet.
Thank you so much for coming here. I'm doing very
Absolutely.
well. How has your day been going?
My day's been quite hectic. Clean my room. So one thing out of my mind. It's good. But it's getting better now. New friend and everything.
Does
on.
cleaning your room help you to free your mind?
Absolutely. I think it should help everybody free their mind. Cleaning your room is cleaning my room, at least for me, is a therapeutic event. So I have to do it at every week or every juncture where something needs to get done, but I don't know what to do. I clean my room. So that's me.
How messy do you make it? Very frequently, or
I
that
used
you have
to
to
be-
clean every week or something?
No, I used to be a very messy person. I think my friends would attest to that. But no, I think I've just become very neat and very OCD type lately because I feel like that's the one thing I can control. So I control it. So now I'm very neat. I keep everything arranged in a certain order, and I'm a little bit of a neat freak like that. So
I loved your entry to my podcast. I think this is one of the very
Thank you.
special, very best entries anybody has done ever till now.
Yeah, I like to do things that are very different. So I make sure that it's not anything conventional.
That's why I
Glad.
wanted to reach out to you, and I was like, Trisha is the person who will make my podcast very
Oh my god.
fun and very fun to listen to.
Yeah.
So, and I hope you guys also get the vibe from Trisha,
I really hope so.
whatever we talk
No,
today.
no complaints if you don't get a vibe. It's all good. We're all here just for, a good time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Over
What are
to
the
you.
other things you do to just maybe relax, free your mind?
Yeah, so earlier, before college and everything, I think it used to be primarily art. But now, currently, I think it's more health related. So I go to the gym every morning. I either go to the gym or I go for a run or I do yoga. So that is something that I have to do in the morning, which really sets the pace for the rest of the day. I'm one of those kind of people. I'm very proud of it, actually. So that I still look to art and music. I sing, I play the guitar sometimes. I try to pick up a new artistic skill. So I think that is something that I do very often. I read, I dance sometimes. I just try to keep myself very busy. That's the point I'm trying to make.
How do you do all of it in a day?
I don't do all of it in a day. So some days you just have space for one activity, and usually that's taken up by my gym time in the morning. If that doesn't happen for whatever reason, I always find space to either read or sing or play an instrument or something, just to take my mind off of things. Or I watch TV. So you can't do everything in a day because you also have your work life to get to at the end of the day. So you have only 24 hours. You just try to utilize it as much as possible.
Right. That's quite interesting. I think we had a very good, very cool beginning of the podcast today.
Yeah, let's
So,
hope. Uh,
how is this, Trisha? Like, how are you so unconventional in your life?
how I'm very unconventional in my life. I think a lot of that stems from my childhood. So I grew up an only child in a joint family. So I grew up with a lot of people, but also like I'm the youngest also in my whole family. So I've had a lot to observe in my house, and I've been a very introverted person from when I was a child, which some people might find hard to believe. But
Yeah, you don't seem
yeah,
introvert
I get that
at
a lot.
all.
I used to be, and I still am to a certain extent. I don't think you just let that version go you. You just fight it and overcome it. So that is one another story for another day, I guess. But
No, we'll
yeah.
cover it.
Yeah, we'll cover it. Okay. So yeah, I just feel like I had a childhood where I was a big wallflower, and by that I mean I just used to stand on the side and watch people and try to learn a lot from them, and learn about their mistakes, learn about their wins and how they got what they got. And just watching them and observing them, I think you will learn a lot from everybody else, like more than education, more than going to college, more than, um, reading a book or anything. I think you have a lot to learn from people themselves. So if you have a good conversation with someone, which Kriti is doing very well, by the way, you learn a lot from them. And that is something that I picked up when I was a child. So eventually I started learning from everybody else's mistakes, learning from their lives, and I would start to question why they're doing it. And when they're doing something, I would also be like, why are they doing it this way? Why can't they do it another way? And eventually all of that came up to a pattern when I started school, as why am I doing this like this? Why can't I do it the other way? So a lot of what ifs and why nots. And yeah, and I've I wouldn't say seamlessly, but somehow managed to weave it into every decision that I make. So whether it comes to how I learn something, and how I apply what I've learned, or how I speak to people, even why can't I speak to them in a louder way or in a more informal way, like how I'm doing with Kriti right now. Yeah, so I think that's just come to a place where now I make decisions based on, if everybody is doing it a certain way, why do you also have to join that crowd and do it the way everybody else is doing? So why can't you just find another way and do it the way you think would work better? Or even if it doesn't work better, you'll at least found another way not to do it, So yeah, that's it. I think.
That's quite interesting, because
Yeah.
being of introverted nature in the childhood, it's very difficult to adapt to what you are
Yeah,
showing as of now.
100%.
The confidence you have, and
I
is
wouldn't
it
say
fake?
it's confident.
Is it fake or real?
I'm a lot of fake it till you make it, but I'm also like at times, Trisha, you need to try. So it's not confidence, I wouldn't say. It's just a lot of courage also, I think, largely. Confidence, I think.
Where
I
does that
still have
courage come from?
I don't know. I think there's just a constant need to do better. I think that's where my courage comes from. So if I feel like I need to keep doing better, I need to keep doing better, which is not always a good thing. But that motivation sparks courage in me, and that courage, brings about change. Which is, I have not gotten over my introvertedness. I still feel like I can be a wallflower a lot. I still feel like I can stand on the side and observe, but now I also have the courage to go and participate with people. Like, for instance, a couple of years ago, I don't think I would have been able to come here and sit into a podcast for YouTube, let alone any sort of social media. But you have the courage sometimes you don't, and you have good days and bad days also. So on a good day you have the courage, on a bad day you really don't. You just want to sit in bed and watch TV 50 hours a day.
Yeah.
So
It
good days.
actually is a combination. It works for a lot of people in the way that
Mhm.
they observe initially from a
Mhm.
distance, and then they go participate, network, maybe in
Yeah,
some of the networking events.
absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think networking is one of the biggest skill sets that anybody can
Mhm.
inculcate. It's the most important in my life, and I am very happy to be able to hone that skill. Yeah, and I would preach it to anybody who knows, and for someone who is very introverted, I'm not speaking about me, I'm just speaking in general. It can be very difficult to
Yeah.
go out and just have a conversation with a random person you've never met or spoken to before. So for those people, just go and do it. I mean, not like it's going to make it. I'm not doing anything by just saying just do it, but you'll get there eventually. Everybody
Yeah.
gets there, I think.
What do you think is the one moment, one life-changing instance which made Trisha from introvert to an extrovert? Do you remember some story,
Oh.
some experience you want to share?
Yeah, I think a lot of that happened around middle school for me, middle school to high school, seventh grade type. So I was I was a bookworm. I used to just focus on studies and I thought about nothing else. I just focused on being, one of those top stellar students who are 99 percentile kind of people. And I was. And
You shouldn't get even
I
one mark
used to
less.
be very upset if I lost 1 mark. And I was naturally a very competitive person back then. And I think I would struggle to recognize that version of me now. But eventually, I think I realized that a lot of it was pulling me down. So if I happened to lose 5 marks in a test, I would be very upset. 5 marks is a stretch. If I lost 10 marks, then I would probably be really, really upset. And I realized I'm putting a lot of my mental space on how well I perform, which is something that I didn't know that it was a thing for me. And I needed to unlearn that very quickly, because if you rest all of your mental space on something, it can go down south very quickly, with even the slightest inconveniences in your life. So I think I had to unlearn that in seventh grade, and that's when I got into a lot of artistic things. I started painting, I started art, I started singing. I participated a lot more in like these inter-school things, and I got into a cappella, and I got into dancing, and yeah, I've always found something to keep me busy outside of school and everything. And I think the pivotal moment, I think, for me was in ninth grade. So there was this music. It wasn't even a music event. It was there's this recreational space called Lahe Lahe in Indranagar. Okay,
I've heard of it.
you've
Yeah.
heard of it? Yeah. So my sister's one of her closest friends owns the place, and she runs it as well. So she'd invited us for the opening in 2016 when they first opened the place. And I think that was a pretty low period for me in general, because I didn't want to get out and do anything, and I wasn't very friendly. I didn't have much of a social life back then.
Loneliness.
It was not loneliness. I feel like it was demotivation.
Hmm.
I don't know why or where that stemmed from, but my mother could see it. And so my sister was heading out for this event at Lahe Lahe, the opening ceremony. I mean, it wasn't a ceremony, but the opening event. And my mother said, "Why don't you take Trisha and go?" And I said, "Why?" And then my sister said, "Just come fast now, let's go." And then I got dressed, and we went to this place. And as soon as you step in, it's like hundreds of people are just like looking at you and doing random things. They're not looking at you, but they're doing random things. There's so many people, there's hustle and bustle and noise, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is from being alone at home to coming to this all of a sudden.
This is so much to experience.
It's too much, and I got a little overwhelmed also. So I was, and my sister, she went away with her friends and everything, and I was just trying to figure out what to do around. And there were tons of things happening. There was pottery making, there was art, there was poetry, and all these workshops that they now have, they were all just happening in smaller scales around the building. And I don't know, I just felt like, okay, you know what, and I act on impulse a lot. Okay, so that's one thing that not a lot of people know about me, but also my closest people will say, okay, you know what, Trisha's going to do this, and she's not even going to think twice, because I don't think. So I just do. So then I saw this Italian guy. He was he was conducting a comic workshop. So I went and I made a comic, and then I moved on to poetry, written poetry or something. And then I went and I wrote a poem. I don't remember anything. And then I went upstairs, and there was a Bharatanatyam showcase happening. So I sat and I watched that. And then immediately there was a tango workshop that happened. So I went and I danced with someone over there. It was great. Okay, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm doing so many things in one day, and I was really excited. And then towards the end of the night, there was this music performance. It's called Music Jam, where people just bring their own instruments and they come and they just play songs that everybody knows and everybody's listening to. And I'm a huge rock person. Okay, I listen to a lot of rock music. And coincidentally, everybody that night was also really in the rock mood. So there were two guitarists and like a pianist and everybody, and they were sitting and they were playing random songs and songs that I love. And we were all just sitting, like there were about 100 people on that roof. It was like the 6th to the 7th floor or something. So it was a beautiful sky, a nice roof, good people, warm lighting, guitarists playing, and then they played this one song that I genuinely fell in love with. And I was just like, you know what? This life is not that hard to achieve. You know, you just have to find some small inspiration to, you know, fall in love with music, fall in love with art, do 5 things a day and just be happy. You know, you're not, this is coming at zero cost to you. I mean, of course, it takes a lot of courage to step out of your house every day, but you know, I think that's a small trade-off. It's a very small trade-off. So I think that day was a very pivotal day. I think I started seeing my life very differently. I think I got more inspired by art after that night. I fell in love with music in a different way. It's why I sing. It's why I play music. It's why I listen to so much music all the time. Like out of 24 hours, if I could, I would listen to music 24 hours a day. It's my whole life, and everything that I do is largely inspired by that kind of art. By art, I mean painting, pottery, everything. So I always find space and time for that in my life, because without it, I don't recognize myself. So
Man,
that's
I could feel all the emotions coming in.
it's a stretch, but thank you.
I have one question after
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
Did you thank your sister for this evening?
Yeah, of course. We went out that night and we ate some kati roll from somewhere. I mean, I didn't thank her because I didn't realize what that night had done to me. I think I realized it much later on. You know, like maybe even a year
You were
or 2
still
years.
in ninth only.
Yeah. So I didn't realize what it had done to me. I think after that, when you look back at it, you start to think why you have become that person. So I'm an introspective person by nature. So when you think about why do I like so many things, why am I like this, why am I so drawn to art over anything else in the world, you start to think back to when it started, and that's when I realized ki, acha, okay, this is when it started. And yeah, I mean, of course, it's not even it's not anything that anybody did. It's a choice that I made. It wasn't like anybody
Yeah.
forced me to go, and I said, okay, let's go. So it's just like one ripple effect can just change everything for you. And there are a lot of ripple effects like that, and I believe it's there in everybody's lives, not just mine. So I'm sure
But-
you have your own
Yeah.
set. as
But it's
well.
easy, like it's important to identify those moments and
Yeah, absolutely.
take inspiration from them.
Not even just identify, write it down. Tomorrow, if you lose your memory, that's just the saddest thing. Write it down. I'm sorry. I know it's a very deep and dark thought, but write it down. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to write, just write it down.
Listen to Trisha
Yeah.
do journaling. I think.
Do journaling. I'm a huge I think I've kept a journal since I was 6, since the time I could start writing.
Do you write every day?
No. I don't write every day. I write when I feel like writing, like when there's a lot that needs to be written down and a lot
has to
needs
come
to be
out, yeah.
decoded. So I write usually. I used to write every day when I was a child because I didn't have anything to decode when I was like 6 or 7. The only thing I had to decode was, oh, today I watched Hannah Montana on TV. So that was not much there. But now, of course, adulthood has its own problems, I think. And everybody goes through it. So journaling has helped me a lot.
How's adulting going for you?
How's the writing going for me?
The adulting.
The adulting going for me? The adulting is very difficult. I don't think anybody is ever prepared for it. You know, you hear about it when you're a child, you hear about what you have to deal with. At least I heard about it because everybody in my house is older to me. So I've seen them go through, oh my God, I have to get my driver's license. Oh my God, I need a bank account. Oh my God, I need to start managing funds. I need to get a job. I need to pass college. And, you know, all of those one by one, it keeps piling on. So I saw it firsthand because of a lot of people in my house. But living it and seeing it are very different things, you know, I've realized. Because, and also, my family has raised me to be very independent. So it's not like someone's going to sit you down and teach you, this is where you do, this is how you do things, this is how you go and apply for your license, this is how you go and open a bank account. Nobody taught me that. And I think nobody taught anybody that in my house. So everything that I have done is what I have gone and, you know, looked up by myself, gone and learned by myself, gone to the bank and asked people in 5 different languages, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do it? That's how I learned that you never go to a bank without a pen. It's really horrific if you show up to a bank without a pen. It's a nightmare. But yeah, so all of these little things, you know, managing your money especially, I think is a big thing that every person needs to know, and it's very difficult to do. You know, as soon as you get your first job and try to manage funds for that, um, it's difficult. That's all I'm going to say. I think that's the one word that covers it all. But it's also exciting if we look at it a certain way, I believe. So, yeah. How's
What
adulting
is
going
it?
for you?
I think even I'm still in the childhood phase of it,
Uh-huh.
feeling that
Savor it.
I have like of course all of us have responsibilities to deal with, but I'm still studying, so I have years.
All the best.
So what do you think? What aspect of it is exciting for you?
Adulting? I think the new experiences. For me, experiences are the most important. You know, I think you can't just sit and listen to other people's experiences. You can't sit and read a book about, you know, and memoirs about how Obama led his life or Michelle Obama led her life. You have to live uh, every single day according to how your life is going to go out. So I think the new experiences make it very exciting. It's also very frightening. So there are two sides of the same coin. So the uncertainty of it all is extremely frightening because you have no idea what is going to happen, especially in your 20s, I think. After your 22, 23, 24, which is where I am right now, you have no idea I have no idea where I'm going to be next year. I could either study or I could work. I have no clue. And it's very frightening to think about it, but it's also really exciting to see, you know, where I'm going to be next year.
What are the possibilities?
Yeah, what are the possibilities? I either could be studying again or working again, or I could volunteer in some volunteer mission in some country across the world. So you never know. You really never know. So I think that is the exciting part.
Yeah, the uncertainty, if we look at it a certain way,
Mhm.
it can be made exciting.
Just a little bit of optimism is all you need. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you think art and music have maybe helped you to have your mental health with you in a certain
Mhm.
way, that it has helped you to benefit and make you self-aware?
Oh my God. It grounds me. That's all I can say. Because I think I've been very fortunate to grow up in a house of art. My mother was a singer and a dancer. My father listens to different kinds of music. My sisters also, my cousins, I mean, and my grandparents also, big people of music and art and film, and we still are. And so I grew up in that space of, you know, finding comfort in art. We don't, I mean, it's not like my family listens to a song and says, oh, what is this amazing raga or anything like that, and they don't try to dissect it. They just listen to it because it brings them a certain feeling of comfort, a certain feeling of nostalgia. Like when you listen to old Hindi music from like 70s and 80s, the kind of comfort it brings is different. So for me, it's like that. And I also listen to a lot of classical music because I studied the violin when I was in like high school. So for me, it's also about reading the music in my head. So when there's a classical song playing, I can, you know, dissect each note, and when something really cute happens, like and really cool happens in the song, I'm just like, my mind neurons are firing. So it's like a different kind of comfort inside, and also like a comforting feeling outside. So for me, music is very important, and for me, art, I think, oh my god, it's just, when I look at it, I see so many stories, and I can talk about it for hours, to be very honest, because art is, it's so cool to see other people create something so unique and that has its own story, has its own life. And that is very inspiring for me. And every kind of art, it's not just, music and painting, it's also dance. I learned Bharatanatyam for maybe 2.5 years, and I think that was an art. It's not an art form that anybody can do. You can't just pick it up, you need to be taught it. And when you are taught it the right way, and you're able to see yourself with that kind of flair, it's like a certain sense of accomplishment. So that kind of art for me is very, very cool, I would say. So it grounds me, and it removes me from everything difficult in my life and takes me to a place where everything is easy, which is why I rely on it heavily. Without music, without art in my life, I think, I don't know, Trisha would be a very sad person. Yeah.
Yeah. So that really makes you a different person altogether.
Altogether, yeah, 100%. I think it makes me the romantic that I am. It makes me the writer that I am. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm good at any of those things, but at least there's some spark of it that lives in me, which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gives me a lot in terms of skills also. So yeah.
Imagine an introvert Trisha after that evening, having this conversation with me.
My God, she wouldn't talk.
But
Yeah.
that's a very positive, complete change, I would say.
Thank you.
So how has your, what do you write about? How has your
What do I write about? I don't,
writing journey been?
So, like I said, I journal. So that's one side of the writing. The other side is the creative side, which I genuinely and thoroughly enjoy. So that is pure inspiration from nature. So when I see like a really green tree, I want to write about it. If I see like drizzling rain, I want to write about it. If I see like an old person feeding a dog on the road, I want to write about it. So it's like, it's just that. Sometimes it's fictional, where you think of a story in your head and you think, hey, you know what, this is a cool concept. So you write about that. So it's vastly in the creative sphere. I don't normally concentrate on writing about thoughts or anything like that. I feel like that's too deep for me. But other than that, it's just my creative space. I don't really do anything with my writing. I write it for me. No one's ever read a piece of mine, and I don't think anyone will, because
Why is it so?
I'm very insecure that way. I feel like that part of me is just for me. At some point, maybe, I will. But I think right now it's just like a safe space that I turn to. So, in, certain safe spaces you just want to keep to yourself.
Yeah.
So that is my safe.
Is it like your shield, which nobody shouldn't wade into?
Yeah. That is. All of my writing, I think, is something that no one should ever invade into. There are some pieces that I do write for people. Like if I have to write something for my best friend, I would write for her, and I have written for her. And if there is something that I need to write for college or an article or something, I do that. That is fine. But things that are born from me, for me, are just for me. So I don't really give that out. But yeah, that's about the writing.
We hope to read it sometime when
Well, we shall know and we shall see. Yeah.
All right. How has our college life been? We have been in the same college, and
Yes.
I've seen you doing multiple leadership roles.
Yeah.
And so
It
tell me
wasn't
about that
easy.
experience.
College for me was actually not very easy, but it was not boring. I think that's one thing that I can say, that I was never bored in college. I always had
Oh,
something
was
to
it
do.
Bollywood style
Oh no.
or?
I mean, it could be Bollywood style, if you know what I mean. Uh, I met a lot of new people. I think there were some people that that traveled with me from like 11th and 12th, and I still have those people with me today. So some of my closest friends are from Christ, and the friendships that I made, they're also very close to my heart. So I think that is one thing that I value deeply. Nothing can be said about my course. I think it was a decent enough course. I learned a lot of skills that are very valuable in today's job market. So, econ, math, and stats, triple major. This is for you, Smita ma'am. But yeah, I think that is one good thing that I took away in terms of skill sets. But I think I don't associate my course with my Christ life. I associate my extracurriculars with my Christ life, because 70% of my time was there. Maybe even 80% of my time was there. I worked for CAPS, I worked for the Millennium Fellowship, and I toggled between these two things, and did a lot more, and I tried to do a lot more within the course and outside of the course. There were a lot of singing things that I also participated in. So that kept me very, very busy. And especially with CAPS, the Center for Academic and Professional Support. I'm straight up advertising everything about this university. But anyway, it's just a personal experience. A lot of people don't feel the same way. I got very lucky with my experiences there, and the people also that I met, like Kriti herself, very sweet, very kind people, and it was a great opportunity to work with them, and also be lucky enough to hold a leadership position 2 years, which was life changing for me, because that's where I discovered that I have a certain skill set that would fare well in the business part of the world. And I believe there are a lot of people who feel the same way after moving out of CAPS. And eventually, it gave me a good stepping off point into my career as well, without which I think I would have still been slow on the reins. And also with the Millennium Fellowship, which was with the United Nations, that was also another life changing experience. I think that's where I got my humanitarian side from. I've always wanted to give back to society, and I've been raised that way because a large part of my family works for their public service people. So, a part of me is always going to be public service. So, but the reason that a lot of people don't get into it this early on is probably because they're all trying to create a good financial base. That's another story. But yeah, I think that's the Millennium Fellowship at Christ helped me do that. And I realized that's also where I thought that convention is really stupid. When you do things a certain way that you've been told to do, sometimes people just don't listen to you. When you're standing in a classroom and you're giving training sessions, and you're asking them to look at the slides, and you're just reading off of it, and trying to slightly
doesn't work
elaborate,
at all.
it doesn't work at all. So I didn't do that. I did that one time, nobody paid attention. So the next time, I knew what was in the slides, and I just tried to have a nice conversation where I was in the middle of the classroom and I was sitting on a table, and then everybody also was just sitting on tables and chairs, and we had a great training session. It went half an hour beyond the time limit because everybody was invested having a conversation with me, and we had a lot to take out of it. And then I thought that this is how things are supposed to be. So any training session that I ever took in Christ was always going to be unconventional, which is why it wasn't very well appreciated by the higher ups, obviously, because it's unconventional. But my motto was to actually get it across, get whatever point I'm trying to make across to the people. And if doing it unconventionally does the job, then I'm going to do it unconventionally. So we used to have training sessions outside. We had it once near the kiosk outside under the trees, which was really great because everybody was excited. And then you show up to training sessions with a little food, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, Trisha got us food," and then they listen to you. So I mean, it doesn't work all the time. You need to do a lot of trial error to see what works for the team and what doesn't work for the team. And I got very lucky because whatever unconventional method I tried worked really well. So people listen, they would communicate, they wouldn't judge. Listen, don't judge.
And people loved you as a trainer.
I can't speak for them. I really can't. I love the training. That's the point that I'm also trying to make. So that's where I got the unconventional sense from. So everything from there was unconventional. The way I studied, the way I learned, the way I did my job at work. It was like questioned a lot, but they saw that it brought a lot of results. So for me, it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a certain urge for people to be different than others,
Yeah.
There should always be something different, something unique about how they approach life, or maybe when they're building a startup, there's something should be different, or maybe they are of course not going to a party. That would look stupid, but
Yeah.
it's like if you do not follow dress code, but something different in approach,
No,
in
even
terms
for,
of everything.
but though the dress code thing that you brought up, I'm so sorry to cut you off. But I was very unconventional with the dress codes also. So I never
Okay.
followed dress codes. And I used to get caught a lot for it. But
Did you feel uncomfortable in a
no.
crowd of people?
Not at all. I actually didn't. I at some point I knew that there was a lot of attention coming towards me.
Oh.
But if you do block everything out, you're absolutely fine. I felt very comfortable being very different from people. So I was happy, and that's why that unconventional nature has followed me even to my dressing sense. Because when I see people, this is why I don't shop from West Side.
That's
or
take
Max
courage,
or
man.
anything.
That's really take courage.
I'll tell you because I don't like when, I mean, it's a personal thing. It's completely a personal thing, and I don't know what analysis people can do about it. It's just I don't shop from Max and West Side because people end up having the same thing. Like you walk down the boulevard on Christ, and you see 5 people wearing the same kurti. So I'm not fond
That
of.
happens with Zudio as well.
Yeah, so I always shop from flea markets. So all these tiny decisions also end up being very unconventional because I don't like doing the same thing as people. So I'm not sure what that tells about me, but it has.
So you are definitely a rule breaker.
Oh, 100%. I have always been a rule breaker, very rebellious by nature, and that is from school. I think everybody and anybody who knows me from when I was a child to when I got into college and when I got out of college will tell you that I was a very rebellious person, and the only reason I got through it was because I also knew how to appease the people who are higher above. So I was kind of like a teacher's pet, you could say. So I got away with whatever rules I broke. So, yeah, that happened in CAPS also.
Yeah.
The reason I got away with everything is because mentors loved me.
I think I need to show this
no,
video.
nobody's gonna see this. Oh my god, I'm so sorry I didn't read it. But yeah, it's just followed me through every decision I make. So every decision I make is different. Yeah, even to my job selection, everybody went for the KPMGs and the PwCs of the world, and I got a nice, cute little organization that changed my career, like for the better.
How was it?
Oh, it was beautiful. So one small segue that I'm going to take here is so when you work for like these big 4 companies that pay you a bajillion amount of money for the work that you do, and you're spending like 12 hours a day, if money is important to you, please go ahead. But if experience is important to you, and I will always stand by this, work for a smaller organization, because when you work for a smaller organization, you understand how the business or the organization works as a whole. when you're working for a really large organization where under your wing there are 60 people, and you only know the work that you do, your team does, and your maybe the umbrella team does, and that's about it. You have no clue. I mean, mostly as a fresher, you will not know the the word. Okay,
Intricacies.
whatever that word. You will not know the tiny bits of everything else and every other wing and how they function. But when you work for a smaller organization, which was what I was fortunate enough to do, I I'm I discovered how the other team works. I discovered how technology works. I discovered how finance works, how transactions between teams work, how media and communications work. And because I had a more centralized role in the organization, I worked with business development, I worked with program management, I worked with sales. So it was just a very all-rounded experience for me, and I would always suggest that going forward. Of course, the pay is not as great, the timings may not be as good, but the experience is A1. So I would always
It's way
suggest
more than
that.
the big companies.
Yeah, 100%. But if the brand value also matters,
Yeah.
100%. But I think in this time and age where you know working for brands is already, it's put on the table and said, okay, great, you have that tag to your
But show
name,
me the
great.
skills.
Yeah, show me your skills. So that's when people get caught a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would always suggest the other way around.
That actually makes sense, because working for startups actually give you that exposure and experience to maybe talk to the founder themselves and know
Yeah.
why did they start the company at the first place.
So I had a daily interaction with my CEO, and he's a great guy. You should definitely, you look him up. But yeah, so having those interactions with everybody, especially, and I got lucky because the culture there was very non-hierarchical. So you could go and strike up a conversation with my manager's manager, and everything will be fine. And they're all like in a close space, which is great. So smaller teams for me just has always been a thing. So.
Do you wish to
Yeah.
start the startup of your own someday?
Oh no, I can't say anything about that. I don't know if I will even be in the business industry 2 years down the line, or even 5 years down the line. I think eventually my purpose in calling is somewhere else. So we'll see. I have nothing to say about it right now. Maybe yes, maybe not.
Why do you think serving is a key aspect in your life? How do you see yourself contributing to humanity?
Yes. So my grandfather, who passed away shortly after I was born, he was largely into public service, and he was a very diligent and gritty person to give everything he has, sometimes even more, to the public, because we come from a very backward part of society, and we've been privileged enough to be educated, to have the means and the money to educate the next generation and have a decent life and hold good jobs that bring good money to the house. So we've been very privileged, and I think the thought that if we had been born at a different time, in a different house, in a different family, whatever adversity that the rest of the world is going through, people being robbed of livelihoods, people not getting the justice that they deserve, that could be us, in another world, in another life. It could very well be us. And we shouldn't take that for granted. I think that is something that has permeated through my whole family and somehow found its way to me. And which is why we've always thought, when we make it in life, when we have what we have and we have enough for just us, we don't need the rest. We can give it away, we can help other communities come up, we can bridge the gap that the country has, the people and communities have, the income disparity. And there are a lot of problems in the world, and I think, and I've always believed that if there are 100 problems in the world, you can't go around solving 100 problems, right? You just take one problem, fix your whole life to that problem, and make sure whatever you do for the rest of your life, if you're going to make $1 million tomorrow, make sure that the $1 million is not just for your life, it also should contribute to someone else's well-being. So for me, being a humanitarian and contributing to someone who really needs the help, I mean, we are very privileged. We've come from a very like middle class family, and we've had just enough for us. But when the next generation goes on, I feel like we will have more than just enough, and that more should be given back to people who don't have enough at all. That is just one path that I have to follow in my life. I don't know if it's because of my family or because I've seen too much in the world. I mean, I'm just 23. There's a lot to see, and a lot is just going to, upset me. But my calling and my purpose is definitely to, help people build a better life for themselves in whatever way. Whether it's if I teach them the ABCs so that they know English and can get a job tomorrow, that would be enough a contribution. And there's one thing that actually when I have a platform to say it, I want to say it. So I had a teacher in high school who told me this one quote that shook me. Okay, he said, if you change the perspective and the thinking of two people in your life so that they know which decision is right and wrong, which decision is kind and which is not kind, and you just change the perspective of two people in your life, you have changed the world. Okay, because when you change the perspectives of two people, those two people will then attempt to change two other people, and those two other people will change another two people, and that becomes like an exponential change. And eventually, if that spread goes long enough, you've changed about a couple billion people in the world. So I think, I mean, it's a very large scale quote, but it's a small scale effort. And that has stuck with me for the longest time. And that's something that I just follow and keep with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I could remember one film, Jai Ho, from this.
Oh my god.
have you seen that?
No, I have not.
So it's Salman Khan's film, in which he says, if you help 3 people, tell them to help 3 more, each one of them.
Is that
Yeah,
something?
so
Oh my God.
it's like a proper chain which goes, and it's the same concept when it comes
that's
to
so nice.
social welfare. They say that it begins with you. So if
It
you
does.
start contributing, how do you think people can contribute? How do you think people should contribute and consider this as their responsibility?
It's not a responsibility. It should be like if you think it's a duty.
It's a duty more.
It's not. It shouldn't be, because when it's a duty, you take the essence out of it. It's like you're doing work. It's not work. It should be something that should come from inside you, and because you want to do it, not because you have to do it.
Because you are also part of the world.
Yeah, you are. You're a very significant part of the world, even if you're like 1 in 8 billion or whatever the population is today. It's a significant contribution because you are part of a community at the end of the day. You interact with people. You may have the ability to influence their thoughts, So I think that every opportunity you have should be an opportunity to try to look at things differently and try to look at it in a very empathetic way. When every decision that you make, everything that you say, how does it affect the other person? Does it make the other person feel good? And I think once you start caring about more than just yourself, that itself is like a huge step forward in humanity in general, if you look at it from the bird's eye view. So just thinking about more than yourself is just all you need to do, really.
Yeah.
Having that empathy is very, very important.
Right. So if you think about others, I think it can, whatever you do, you must include the welfare of others, and
yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes people can be, and it seems like a very simple thing to do, but it's very difficult, because even even these tiny things about throwing the trash, you know. Some people, when they're trying to segregate waste, they'll be like, oh, it's fine, you know, it's cool. What difference is it going to make? It's going to make a difference. And tomorrow there's some lady working in the garbage disposal community, and they're sifting through your garbage, and if there's one thing that you could have done, like wrap something with newspaper, or cut something into pieces, or not separated two pieces of plastic, that also goes a long way, because it's like these really every movement, I think, changes. It goes as a ripple effect. And if you start thinking about, acha, if I can just wrap this in newspaper, it makes tomorrow's person's job easy. So it's those tiny things that you can think about, which goes a really, really long way. You don't have to go and give half your salary away to charity. That makes no difference. What you can do is go and spend time with people that you have not spent time with people who don't know you. I think that's one thing that I learned when I was volunteering in this old age home. They're all just like really sad, lonely people, because their families just come and leave them in the home, and then they continue with their lives. And they're all just like really lonely, and they don't know what to do. When you go and spend time with them, it lights up their life. It seems like a large sentence, but it's the truth. When you go and like just say hi, how are you, and you folding clothes with them and helping them organize their room, it's life changing for them, and that's the only thing they have to look forward to.
I'm really getting goosebumps.
Oh my God.
It's really a
I'm not
transformative
preaching. I'm not preaching.
No. It's really transformative thinking in terms of contributing to these little things.
It's just the little things.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all anybody ever has to do. Just think about how this is going to change the next person's. How is it going to make it easier for them? And tomorrow, when that person sees your trash wrapped in paper or in the right bag, they're going to thank this person.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, thank God this person has brains.
Blessings you'll receive are immense.
Yeah,
amazing.
and blessings are the only thing that you need. The spirituality, the religion, all of that is there. It keeps you sane. It gives you faith. All of that. But at the end of the day, people wishing well on you,
Best thing.
Yeah, it's just the best thing. And that's all you ever need. That's all.
I think thank you so much for sharing
Yeah,
this, because
yeah.
if anybody of it even feels this from what you have said, they will actually implement this and make changes in the lives of a lot of people. So
Let's hope. If not, do you have any current affairs to share today? Christ has a holiday tomorrow. Do you have any jokes that I can impart just as a parting gift? Knock knock.
who's there?
Daisy.
Who? Daisy?
It's Daisy Voodoo. You have to say Daisy who?
Daisy who?
They see me rolling. They hate it.
I think you should wear your glasses again.
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Golden opportunity. I missed it. Thank you.
That was a
Rewind
cool
and do that
entry,
again.
and that's a cool exit.
Yeah, man. See you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Trish.
so
It
much,
was
Kriti.
it's wonderful to have you here.
Wonderful to be here. I am so excited. I'm in someone's podcast, guys. Oh my God, I'm famous. Like, share, subscribe.
Thank you so much. Listen to her, subscribe to Journey Teachers, and I will also leave the links to reach out to Trisha in case you need to connect with her and be cool like her.
Connected to me spiritually. That's all you need. Don't need anything else.
But thank you so much. It was such a wonderful
Absolutely.
podcast. A very fun I did in a long time. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having me. Thank you for being a nice host.
Thank you.
You guys for watching it. If you made it till the end, congratulations. You graduated.
Thank you. See you.